All right, good morning, everybody. Let's see if I got my volume set over here. Perfect. Yeah, there we go. Hear that little echo. Welcome. It's April 23rd, another Wednesday. So we got another Water Cooler Wednesday for you. I'm joined as always by Dwayne Gibbs. Dwayne, how are you?
Kevin.
Good. I hear a background. Is that yours or mine?
No, I don't know. I
You got your volume up? Oh, it might have been mine. There we go. Yep, it was mine. Sorry about that.
oh, that's all right.
Okay. Well, let's see. I was working on three deals. I might have mentioned them to you, vacant land deals that I'm doing. And
Yeah.
yeah, we're doing them, between buyer and seller, going old school. In other words, I had somebody, it's actually somebody I trained in the business years ago, bring three notes to my attention. And I'm partnering with some of the people in my elite program on those deals. And I've known the guy a long time. He's known me a long time, so there's a lot of trust and everything else. So, the question becomes, all right, do we need really to have a title company do this? Do we need attorneys to do all this kind of stuff? And, it started me thinking of the old days, before we had the computers and the cell phones. I mean, we are going to the courthouse to find leads and just had no technology. We had a lot fewer rules and regulations. And, we just did things old school. I mean, you had a manila folder, and you went through the documents and you created contracts between each other and that sort of thing. And it just got me thinking, who do we really need and when do we need people in this business? And I thought we'd talk about that today. And because I
Pull out your rotary dollar. Did you pull out your phone? Oh,
yeah, you
how
just
far old school did you go?
yeah, yeah, you just didn't call people that had a nine in their phone number. You're like, oh the hell, I had to
Oh,
do
yeah.
that, right? I'm not doing a nine. Taking way too much time.
Yes.
You to dial a nine. I forget. There's some comedian had a whole bit on that. But anyhow, I think most people are going to be surprised that it's not that many people that we really need in pretty much all occasions if you know what you're doing. But at the same time, if you feel you need help in certain areas, you certainly can get it from various groups. So I plan on outlining that for you today and just kind of building that from scratch. Um,
Hey, you talked
so
about your elite group. Can you briefly say what that is? I know we probably have some new listeners and may want to know what you meant by that.
yeah, there's some investors who uh, want to get involved in notes, but either they don't feel that they have the time, they just don't feel that they'll ever get around to doing it themselves, some combination perhaps thereof, or they have a lot of fear about getting into something new. Maybe it's a combination again of all three of those things. So
Mhm.
put together a program, launched it back at the end of 2024, and it's taken off pretty well because not only do I bring deals to them based upon what they're looking for. So the first thing I do is, well, what are you looking to accomplish? How realistic is that? What type of deals? And I really narrowed down on figuring out what's the best type of deals for this individual. And I go out and find them. And I bring them to them. I put together a short little video just saying, hey, here's the deal. I've found it. I've researched everything. If you want to proceed with this, let me know. Either just give me a yes or let's set up another Zoom. We'll go through it together and proceed. And once they proceed, I put everything together. I manage the whole thing and I invest with them.
Oh,
And, I put money in the deals.
yes.
You've heard me say this before. There are people who will partner with you in the note business, but by partner, they mean you pay all the money and I get half of the profits.
Yeah.
That's not, that doesn't work for me. There's no way. That doesn't seem right in any shape or form. You pay somebody for education and then you go to partner with them and you're putting in 100% of the money and they're getting 50% of the profits. I don't think so.
Oh, even though
Um,
you're putting up your percentage, you're not getting 50%. They're getting the majority of it. Perfect.
Exactly. I've got
Yeah,
just enough in there so I can be in there for the whole deal. Something goes wrong, something isn't working out. I have a direct relationship with the servicing companies and everything else. We got it boarded together. So I might own 10% of the note, 15% of the note. They own, the 90% or 85% of the note, which also means when you do it that way, the right way to do it is I only get, if I own 10% of the note, I get 10% of the monthly income
that's right. That's right.
and they get 90%.
That's right.
And which also means if we bought the note at 12%, they're making 12% on their investment. I'm making 12 on mine.
That's right.
Yeah, it's the right way to do it. So that's
I just wanted you to share because I'm sure we have new
yeah,
people on. Yeah,
yeah. So these land deals were perfect for that. So um, but here we are. So we're at a point we're going, okay, let's write up the contracts. So I took the lead obviously on that. And I just said, well, I've got contracts and I'll fill them out. And so we don't need attorneys to really do that. These are all templates today. You can buy templates at websites all over the place for anything from LegalZoom to deeds.com. Of course, I have templates that I've used over the years that, have just longevity in the business and things like that, and you fill in the blank. There's nothing else an attorney is going to do that's going to change that contract. In other words, an attorney could draw up the same thing, but I'm also going to pay an attorney $250 or so to draw up that contract, probably more in today's world, maybe $500 to draw up that contract. So do we need attorneys? Not for that kind of stuff. I mean, you can if you want, but you're just overpaying on that. So that got me thinking, like I said, I think our first thing that we need are vendors who provide BPOs and title. I think that's kind of the first thing that we rely upon. Um, Now we normally don't order BPO. BPO, for those who don't know, broker's price opinion, and that's essentially having a real estate agent go out to the property, take pictures of the property, look at the neighborhood, assess from the street, assess the condition of the property, and then go back to the office and run it through multiple listing service and come up with the comparable sales to establish what is the as is fair market value of the property. And of course, that's important for us to know because the property, although not ours, right? We don't own it. It is our collateral though. So it's important that we understand how much that property is worth because we're going to compare that to how much we're investing in this deal. And you've heard me talk about investment to value ratio before, and that's very, very important. So on almost every deal that you do, you'll probably get a BPO. One of the reasons is these deals are normally not in your backyard. We go to where the deals are in this business, and it's just, you want to have some boots on the ground, so to speak. You want to have some eyes on the actual property. That's the best way to do it. So there are companies that one phone call BPO can be done pretty much anywhere in the country in about 3 days. If it's rural somewhere, it might take a little bit longer, but that's about it. Title reports are important as well, especially if you're not proficient at going through public records. I'm very efficient at doing that, and I essentially do a title report myself on every deal. Having said that, though, there are certain counties, sorry, there are still counties in the United States that simply don't have all the documentation online yet, and therefore making it impossible to do. In cases like that, you would have to make sure you get a title report. But I would say again, on 90% plus on deals, you're going to get a title report until you get very skilled where you feel comfortable enough that you know exactly what the lien position is. If there's other liens on there, how they work, how they affect you, those sorts of things. But that takes a while to learn. So default position for a beginning investor is, almost a certainty that you're going to get a BPO, broker's price opinion, and a title report on every deal. So those we do rely upon, but none of that is very expensive. You're looking at the total package there of about $180 to $200, again, depending upon how accessible the county records are and how close in proximity the property is versus some rural property. It's going to be a little bit more expensive. Somebody's got to drive out there. So those sorts of things, maybe 180 to $200. So at the end of the day, when you're looking at these deals, is it worth it to pay $180 to have somebody go out there, look at the property, take pictures for you, run comparable sales on it, and run a title report? So it's just backing up. Maybe you looked enough online, but you just like you got a second set of eyes there from a professional who's very good at doing that, and you come up with a title report. That it just makes sense in my mind, especially as a novice. If you're a beginner, just expect that as a part of your closing.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, another set of eyes on it. I mean, the value of spending $180 to have that done and have a peace of mind knowing, okay, you know what I'm looking at is correct, the research I'm doing is correct, and so it gives you a green light to move forward.
Yeah, and you don't order them. The key is you don't order them until you have a property under contract.
Correct.
It's like don't start ordering BPOs and title reports on every deal you're looking at. Make sure you have the right to buy it and they have the obligation to sell it to you. Then you can put out the 180
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
to get those done. So that's almost a given. A given too in this business really is a servicing company. You can self-service loans. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Although uh, you can run into problems. If you are self-servicing and you don't provide the proper documentation, you don't provide the proper tax forms to the person, if you don't use a proper accounting software program that instead of just Excel spreadsheet, if you have a software program, fine. Excel, a lot of people just depend upon, or they use, a spiral notebook or something like that, or they just don't track it at all. People are receiving payments through Venmo or PayPal or something like that, and they just kind of track it as well. It came into my account. That's all well and good as long as somebody is paying, and as long as you're keeping that note, fine. If you go to sell that note, that's when you're going to start to run into the potential issues. Um, I had a deal. There was a deal actually on PaperStack, and I reviewed this deal. They were self-servicing this note. And the way they described to me what the balance was didn't make sense at all. So I knew right away, they don't really know what they're talking about. They gave me a balance they owe of, I think, $24,000, but the unpaid balance was 18. I'm like, well, no, something doesn't make sense. And I looked at the report that they had printed out and I figured out what they did. They looked at the bottom of the report and saw principal and figured that was the principal balance. It's like, no, 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 that's how much they've paid in principal that year. Okay. And then they had the unpaid balance column, which was 18 grand. And these people have paid late, and a lot of times people who are self-servicing don't realize there's a daily cost to money. You can't just go by the amortization schedule and say, well, the payment was due on the 1st and they paid on the 30th of the month. So you apply the same amount of principal, the same amount of interest that month. No, you don't. No, you don't. Not if you're doing it the right way. A lot more is going to go towards interest because they were late. There should be a late penalty. And plus, they're paying additional interest on a daily basis, a per diem basis, until that payment is made. And over time, that can really change things. And I did these people a solid. I said, look, I said, your note balances are totally messed up. And I said, I don't want to buy this note and have to pay somebody to go back through and account for it and everything else. I said, I would recommend to you. And they looked up who I was and everything. And they even checked, I think, with Brett or somebody over at PaperStack. You're like, who's this guy? They're like, yeah, he's the guy. And it's like, okay. So they went back and did what I told them. I said, get an accountant or get an attorney, get a bookkeeper to go back and redo your accounting on this, because I'm just telling you the way you have been doing this is wrong. And your unpaid balance is going to be much higher. And sure enough, they got that done within a week. And the balance that they showed at 18 grand now became about $34,000. And they actually sold the note for about $6,000 more than they originally had it listed for, because I just showed them how to, do it the right way. And that added value to the loan because they had mistakenly done incorrect things on the accounting. So if you're self-servicing, you can run into those problems. Now, again, if they had a proper software program that accounted for that and everything else, fine. But those software programs can be expensive versus a servicing company that's going to charge you anywhere between $15 and $30 a month. It's worth it. They'll send out the letters, they'll send the 30-day late notices, they'll make the phone calls. It's just a heck of a lot easier to do that. Kind of like when you're renting a property, if you're the landlord who's hands-on and they know you own that rental property, you always run into problems, right? If you have a property manager who's running the show over there, less sympathetic, that sort of thing, and they get stuff done. So servicing companies are well worth it for the price that they pay. And more and more people are creating notes where they already put in there that the person making the payments pays principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and servicing fees. So it doesn't even come at a cost to you in some cases, depending upon how the note was created. So smart thing to do. And Dwayne, a lot of the people with the servicing companies, they've all been around for a good bit of time. They're all good people.
Yeah, they've been around for a long time, and that's what they do. We're in the educational space of teaching people about the note business. They're in the space of servicing. There's title companies. I mean, so everybody has a place in a lane of where they're professional at. To your point about having it serviced properly, we come across that a lot of times in seller financing where, oh yeah, I got the pay history and it's all good. But then when it comes time to move forward in the deal, just like you and I were looking at a deal ourselves a month ago, well, yeah, it's kind of recorded and we kind of have payments on time. Well, did the lady pay on time or did she not? Well, I think I have it somewhere. And so um, when you cannot provide pay history, accurate pay history, and showing what's being paid, then the value of the note diminishes, like you said. So it becomes a problem, and I think we see that more on mom and pop deals.
Yeah, and if you can't establish, if you've been self-servicing, that this is what the balance is, or you're not willing to sign an affidavit, a licensed bonded servicing company will not board that loan, which makes your loan almost unsellable to 80-90% of note investors because they use servicing companies.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to put yourself in that position. So either pay for a software program and run it yourself that knows how to do these things the right way, which again can be pricey. If you're doing high volume, I suppose you could do that. But if you're doing high volume and self-managing, I think you're you're defeating the purpose.
Well, I think too,
You know
and
what I mean? It's
using a
like,
servicing company that people that we know that are in the industry and do it,
yeah,
it makes it so much easier and less headaches for you. Hey, is this right? Is this right? Do I have all my information? 1099s at the end of the year. How's this done? They missed payment. Did now letters have to go out? Whatever that looks like, they're able to take care of everything for you. So way less of a headache for you, especially if you're just starting out.
yeah. Even on loan payoffs, I've got Alvin right now he's got another loan paying off, right? Um, he'd rather have it's been a great loan. He'd rather have it not pay off, but it's been going great. It's one of those loans where he hasn't had to do a single thing. He used these two vendor services and that's it. He's never had to use anybody else on this loan because the person just pays on a regular basis. But
Mm.
now they just did a cash out refi. So cashing out is cashing him out of his note. And the servicing company has to get involved because they have to provide a payoff amount. And again, that payoff amount is good on that day. And then there's a per diem and add an extra interest, daily interest to that note if the closing were to be delayed or something like that on that. And servicing companies do all of those things as well. They have all the numbers, they have it exactly right. And when those numbers are coming from, again, a licensed servicing company, um, title companies, attorneys, they have no problem with those numbers at all. That is what the numbers are going to be. And they are licensed, by the way, everybody. And states require licensing. In fact, when I was sitting down with the owner of one of the servicing companies out of Reno, Madison, um, he was blowing me away with how much time he has to spend every year just taking tests for licensing again.
Mm,
It's really just, you imagine they're licensed, I believe, in every state. So
mm.
he's got 50 tests that, and even if it's only 40 states, he's in 40 different tests in 40 different states every year or two just to keep the licenses up.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So they have to be up to speed on things. And again, if you're self-servicing a note, do you know specific laws in that specific state? No, you probably do not. And that could cause a problem if the note were to go bad and you have to foreclose. And then they go, oh, well, you didn't do this right. And it just delay, 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 delay. So these two services, I would say, for note investors, and above and beyond mentoring, I'm going to leave mentoring and everything out of that. I think that's number one. But that aside, these two, if you're actively involved in the business, these are two that you're going to constantly be utilizing. But when you look at the overall cost for this, it's very, very minimal. If you're paying $180 for the first one, BPOs and title, and you're paying $25 a month on average, and or maybe free because the borrower is paying that, you can't, those two are just a given. Those are a part of who we need in this business, and you want to utilize obviously the right ones in the business. So above and beyond that, who else might we need? Everything else, I think, above and beyond these two is when a note goes bad. Unless you can think of something, Dwayne, that we need when a note is performing well above these, I was stumping myself this morning. I really couldn't think of something else that you need when a note is well performing. Um, this is when you get notes that, well, I call them boring, but boring being good. You buy a note and you never have done a single thing. The money just comes in every single month. You get an email from the servicing company. It's like, okay, strict passive income, and you just really don't need another thing because, as you mentioned, they're sending out tax forms and everything else. So maybe I would say if you have if you need an accountant, but that's not singular to the note business. So I don't want to put that in as a vendor that you need, and then
I would suspect most people that are in the note space or any type of real estate investing or whatever have an accountant. So,
yeah, accountant or bookkeeper. I mean, that's
yeah,
most people are going to have something like that. So that's not really specific to this industry where these two
right.
these two are.
Yeah.
So if a note does go bad, then I would say, okay, that's when attorneys are going to come into play.
Play. Mm,
Because again, we don't need them. You can use them, but you don't need them for document creation, such as deeds, assignments, allonges. When I show people assignments and allonges, they're always blown away at how simple they are. They go, "That's it. It doesn't feel right." They look at a one-page allonge and they go, "Allonge." I'm like, "Yeah, guess what? That's what banks do too. It's a one-page document." And they're always blown away by that. So they are not difficult, and most of the assignments and allonges, those are good throughout the United States. Deeds might get a little more specific, but with deeds, the law in there is if there's a certain state law that has to be put in a deed of a property, and you use a template that doesn't have that in there. Although you can buy templates that are state specific, everybody, you can do that. But if you just have one, let's say it's generic, and you utilize it in that state, the state law is going to say if something goes into court, we're assuming that law is in there. Even though it's not written, they're saying it is in there because our state law says that it is. Okay. So templates and things like that, you can absolutely use. You can make them, you can get them state specific. But when it comes to a note going bad, foreclosure, don't foreclose yourself. You're going to trip up, you're going to make mistakes. And states, look, 30 years ago, you may have gotten away with that, but today they're so anti-foreclose on somebody to the point where it's just gone too far, where people are staying in their homes for 5, 6, 7 years, not making a payment, abusing the system. You need an attorney that makes sure that you're filing things on time, that you're doing everything on time. Otherwise, that foreclosure is going to be drawn out. It's going to cost you more money, and it just becomes a big challenge. so don't try to do that yourself.
I'm sure everybody understands that's a real estate attorney, not, hey, my brother-in-law is
It's a
an
good point.
accident attorney and he can handle this. So it is a real estate attorney that you want.
That's a good point. Yeah, good point. And there are specialists, as
Yes.
well. There are general practitioners of real estate attorneys that, sometimes all they do is they have a title company, and that's what they know how to do is they know how to close real estate transactions. That's a lot different than people who have experience in foreclosures and loss mitigations and negotiations and things like that. So there are specialists in our field also
Hmm.
that are above and beyond just real estate attorneys. So I'll put specialist in there also. And
And it's not a bad idea to ask them how many deals they've done. I mean, so you can interview the attorney when a lot of them have free consultation. So find out how many cases have they done. Are they familiar with the note industry, or and again, that's just being specific and having a specialist in that area, because we've come across before, oh, I'm a real estate attorney, but well, I don't really do, no, I'm not really sure about that. So,
yeah,
do your homework and get the right one.
yeah, 100%. And that's where, I have a lot of clients. I say, look, I refer them to the specialist agency in our field, but a lot of times too, I'll tell them, look, where's this located? Okay, Illinois, I've got somebody there.
Yes.
And so when you find good attorneys in different states, and you're around long enough, you can build up a little bit of a database that can be
But they
gold.
get access to all this once they're working with you. You have
Yeah, sure,
the connections that everybody's able to get. Yeah.
sure,
Good.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, real estate attorneys would be a part at that point in time. Let's other vendors and such that we might need are going to be auxiliary things like door knockers. From time to time, we might need a door knocker to go out there to hand deliver something. I've got a client right now that it's a contract for deed. For those who don't know, a contract for deed is a type of a loan where the lender stays on the title to the property until paid in full. And the borrowers are renting out the property. And the note owner needs to contact the borrower, but the borrower's not living at the property. Where the heck are they? They can't find any forwarding address or anything like that. So logically, it's like, well, who might know? Well, the tenants might know because they're probably sending a check somewhere. Now, again, they might be just depositing into a bank account, but it's like that's a logical place to start. Well, I think this client lives in California. I might be wrong. And the property is probably somewhere in Illinois. They're not going to fly out, to Illinois. You hire a door knocker. The door knocker goes out there with specific instructions given by you for them to inquire to find out. And those type of services are readily available. Excuse me. And you only need, like I said, these other services we only need when a loan goes bad. That's really all it comes down to. Um, let's see what else am I thinking of here, Dwayne? That's what I mean. There's so few that we really uh, that
Real
we really
estate
need in
attorney
this
specialist.
business. It's not like we have to have this huge team of people to start in this business. And let's see, just trying to see if I can see anything else over here that I might be missing. Yeah, oh, you know what? Um, if you're creating notes, okay, so you do want an underwriter, okay? So I'll start to break these into categories here for you. So if they're performing and they're working well, you're probably good there. If they go NPL or non-performing, as we say, then you might need these other ones if you're creating notes. That back up here. if you're creating or originating loans, which is also part of the paper business, everybody, you do want to have an underwriter. It's an important step. Okay, so what does an underwriter do? An underwriter is going to qualify the borrower. Why do we need to qualify a borrower? Well, because the Dodd-Frank Act, which is federal law, says we have to. That's why. It adds value to your note. Do all note originators do it? Of course not. Do all borrowers require? No. If it's a business-to-business loan, Dodd-Frank doesn't apply, so you don't need an underwriter. If it's business to consumer, like you're an LLC and you fix up a piece of real estate, now you're selling it to Mrs. Smith. Well, Mrs. Smith is a consumer, you're a business. The government thinks that you are at an advantage position because you know the business, she doesn't. Therefore, we want to make sure that you don't set her up for failure. So we want you to underwrite her to make sure that she can afford that property. That's really all it is. And the underwriter service, again, it costs I think $700 now to do, but who should be paying for that? If somebody wants to get a loan from you, they should be paying for the underwriting. So most people just pass that cost off to the person who wants to get the loan from you. So that's an important step, and it's one I think that some people still haven't got the message on in our industry. And
They skip over that.
yeah, it just makes so much sense to have, um, uh, not only because it's required by the law, but don't you want to know the person's qualified as well? I mean, don't you want to know that they really can afford it? I mean, what is wrong with getting an underwriting done? It just makes complete sense in my mind, and I still am baffled why some people just don't want to do that. But
Plus, if you're going out on a secondary market and you want to sell that off, I mean, a better note that is written is going to create the value for you and when you go to sell it.
hmm hmm yeah. Especially if it's a new note. There's a lot of investors who want to create a note, turn around and sell it as quickly as possible. If it's not underwritten and it's business to consumer, that note investor is taking on additional risk. And when we take on additional risk, guess what? More of a discount. Why more of a discount? Because we're taking on additional risk. You didn't
Mhm.
underwrite them properly. And the
Right.
way the law is written, by the way, everybody, if they're not underwritten properly, up to 3 years, that borrower, if they run into problems and you foreclose upon them or threaten to foreclose upon them, they're going to lawyer up, and the attorney's going to say, did they underwrite it? Did they look at your taxes? Did they ask you for any forms? Did they look at your income? Did they verify any of that? And their answer is like, no, no, no. They never did any of that. The attorney's like, oh, fantastic. I'm going to get them on the Dodd-Frank Act. And I'm going to say that, you know what? You set this person up for failure. Now we're going to reverse it on you. Instead of you foreclosing, we want every dime that borrower paid to be reimbursed. And guess what? If you own the note now, guess who they're looking at? Okay. And then you
Hmm.
in turn have to try to sue the other person. And then you look at the contract, and your contract says you're buying the note as is. And now you're in another lawsuit. So it all could have been avoided at essentially no cost to the loan originator, just by passing on the cost of underwriting to another party. It just, it doesn't make sense to skip that step as well. And that's really, I mean, that's all we need. And when you get good notes, it's really those two. When things go bad, you get those two. If you're originating a loan, you're going to use the underwriter. And then, of course, it makes sense for you to board the loan and that sort of thing, have a BPO and title report done. But that goes, I think, without saying. So do we need a lot of other people in this business? No. So that's why it also makes sense if you're new. Does it make sense if you're starting in a business to get help? And
My own thought
and
about this is I think that there is something else that's important, and it looks like you're probably going to hit on that. being a part of a group. You and I talk about masterminding in groups and mentoring, and it all is an umbrella of itself, but be a part of a group to where you have a network of people that live abroad. So within your group, you have people that live all over the country. That it's a group. You have somebody that lives in Florida and is buying a property in California or Illinois or Michigan. Likelihood is that you have students there that everybody partners, and hey, I use this attorney for this and that, and you can put on your network of uh you know some so and so's looking for a real estate attorney in Michigan. Anybody have any ideas? And boom, 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 there it is. And it saves a lot of time because like-minded people work together. They understand the business because you're training them. And so I think of being a part of a community that you have uh, uh, a lot of resources to where you don't have to go out. I mean, that value is huge. You know who you're working with, you know what you're getting.
Yeah, and just because I know you mean this as well, is um do your research of the community that you're in, though. I mean,
Well,
if it's
that's to go
yeah,
without
it's
saying, you
yeah,
know.
because it could flip on you the other way, or yeah, I'm in part of this Facebook group and so said this, and then I'm like, yeah,
Absolutely.
it turns out so and so has been in the business for 2 years, and they
Yeah. Well,
or
I didn't
whatever,
think I had
six
to say
months, and
that, but yeah,
it just gets kind of nutty. So yes, be a part of it, but also be able to do your own research and verify. Even like these notes I'm buying, it's trust but verify. These notes I'm buying from this guy that I started out our whole conversation with this morning, even though I've known him 15 years, don't you think I went through every single document? I scrutinized every single thing, and he knew I was going to
absolutely.
do that. He expected me to do that. So he provided, here's everything I have. Here's all the pictures, here's all the documents, here's everything we signed, here's this, here's that, everything above and beyond. It's one of those people when who knows how to sell a note that says, I know you're going to ask for this, so here it all is, and go through it. And I went through everything, and these were some pretty good size files, not because the note's been traded a bunch, but simply because he had surveys. He had all, I mean, just everything in there, plat maps, what the zoning's been changed to. I mean,
Hmm.
just over and above, because he knew, yes, I know him, I trust him. So my first reaction was I said, hey, if you've created these deals and you've done them right and you say they're good deals, yes, I'm interested, but send me the paperwork. You know what I
For
mean? Like,
sure.
yeah, I'm still gonna look at it and everything else. So if you get advice, that's what we're trying to say here. If it's a part of a community or a group, make sure who in the community has the wherewithal to back up what they're saying. I mean, I remember years ago, a guy wanted to start a mastermind group because mastermind's a buzzword, right? And ooh, you gotta have a mastermind. And he wanted a mastermind of all beginners. And I kept saying, that's not a mastermind.
No,
That's a group of people who don't know what the hell they're doing. So congratulations. Now you are part of a group where nobody knows what they're doing. I'm like, how is that a mastermind? It's a group coach. Call it what it is. Nope, it's a
right.
mastermind. I'm like, it's no, you would never go to a mastermind where it's all beginners. It's not a
Why
master.
do you want to be the smartest person in the room?
The whole idea is you want to have people who are operating at experienced, higher levels, and so please do that. So I agree with the groups and the communities, but again, there's so many communities online and everything today, and some things I come back to me. We're like, well, this person's in this particular group, and I'm like, no, no. That's no. It's not how it works. And so anyway, just a little word of caution on that. But
To use that statement, trust but verify, for sure.
yeah, yeah, 100%. I don't, people make mistakes, and so even somebody that I know and trust might have made a mistake on something. I just got to go back through and look at it and make sure. So everything else, I mean, there's a lot of things that we can look at online. So skill set, I guess, would be a whole other conversation because these are just kind of vendors, but your own individual skill set on Uh, you know, more and more we're going to see AI being used, and I think AI is going to have an impact on this. I think AI is going to have an impact on possibly on some parts with the attorneys, not foreclosing. They're not going to be replaced, but certainly AI is going to help you in some other areas. But the problem AI has with even like title reports is the Privacy Act. They can't go into public records and pull those documents yet, anyway. So we can't totally rely on that, but you do have to have a skill set to be able to go on public records, the various websites, and again, all we're doing in this business is we gather information, we organize it, we analyze it, we make a decision. And a lot of times that decisions is we're moving forward or we're done. If we're moving forward, guess what? We gather more information, reanalyze it, make another decision, ultimately up until we buy the deal. So it's constantly just getting more information and processing that. And when you think of it in those terms and you apply it in those terms, that's how you are able to navigate your way through the business without taking those big losses, and doing things safely and getting proper returns and longevity, quite frankly, in the business, because you're just well armed with better information. And when you pass on a deal, there's legit reasons for it. And if somebody wants to take that note that you passed on, well, guess what? Good luck, and we'll see how they end up doing. All righty. Well, that's what I got for you today.
Yeah, good lesson.
And yeah, I think so. And so get started. It's not hard. You don't need to put together a whole team and all that sort of stuff. I know a lot of times in traditional real estate, well, I need a handyman, I need this guy, I need a contractor, I need this, I need that, and you do. In this business, you really don't. We have services that are already there. You can up and get started much quicker and without the expense and everything else that you see in more traditional real estate. So let's see. I think I put your info up here tonight, Dwayne. You got a couple things going on, right? You got the survey still going
Yeah,
on.
so absolutely. So if have them go to learn.kevinshortell.com and then they can go in and register to receive the new 4 series videos that you put together completely free about analyzing a deal and some deals that you were working on. You just release that. That's awesome. That's for anybody that signs up, goes to learn .kevinshortell.com and good stuff. And then what they'll do is they'll fill out a questionnaire, just kind of, where you're at, how we can help you. Love to answer questions. I've been getting a lot of good questions, great feedback. I've been printing them out. I mean, just tons of questionnaires, and phone calls with students that have questions. And I think it's really it's making an impact on their seeing that, hey, I can call, I can reach out, you're answering my questions. I just talked to a lady yesterday afternoon from South Carolina, completely grateful of just, hey, I thought I was gonna, didn't know if I would really get you guys and to be able to talk. And absolutely talk to us, answered her questions. We spent about 45 minutes on the phone. She was going through a deal, kind of walked her through, helped her out, and good for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're getting on our list, and we don't bombard you with emails or anything like that at all. But I think you'll always find something interesting that we have going on, and again, you can become a part of this community. All right. Well, very good. And thanks, Dwayne, as always.
Talk about the DME. Also, DME conference is coming up that we will be at next Friday and Saturday in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah. Might be a little late to sign
I
up.
talked to Nathan on Monday, and the hotel discount is gone, but they can still receive the discount, the $100 off by your code. So Kevin has a code and when you sign up, you'll still receive a $100 off for signing up through Kevin.
Gotcha. Beautiful.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, everybody. Thanks again. And we'll talk to you again real soon now.